Good morning, Mr. Taran. Good morning. How you doing? How's everything going? 8:06. God damn it. How do minutes fly, man? Minutes just fly. I am live though. I'm live on YouTube. I'm live on LinkedIn. And I've also sent the message to people on WhatsApp. Right? Yes. Which means we are ready to begin. We are ready to begin. Should we go? Should we go? Can you hear me? I hope you can. I hope you can. Because we are ready to begin the show that we deserve. The show that we deserve, right? It's that good. We deserve it. Right in the morning. Bum 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 bum. Mr. Jindal. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We are having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We are working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, you gotta follow a tradition, right? You gotta follow a tradition. You know the tradition? The sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice or stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having hot water with some black pepper in it. Last time's Jeera didn't work for me. And here we go. Oh my god. Beautiful. Sublime. Let's do it again. Nice. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we're in this together. And that's such a beautiful thing to say. And it brings us good luck every day. Done and sync, says Mr. Tarun. I got distracted with that done and sync and with Mr. Jindal's bum 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 going on. But that was interesting. So let's begin the day. IBC bill aiming for faster process sent to select parliamentary panel. Committee report on proposed changes to be submitted by first day of winter session. So essentially, some new frameworks are going on as far as the insolvency and bankruptcy codes are considered. Some changes, some improvements. Essentially, what these people have been trying to do. This IBC, by the way, IBC, NARC, this has been a very new thing for India, right? In India, when bad loans happened, nobody knew what to do. just simply nobody knew what to do, right? The court cases got stuck forever. It was just a forever limbo kind of a situation. So what these people did was they created IBC, which is an insolvency and bankruptcy code. And then the government has also created a national bad bank, which is like a national asset reconstruction bank, and so on. Just so these bad loans can come out of the books, right? They can be sold, they can be repackaged, they can be, moved out of the books, essentially. Stressed assets is a very, very big part of the financial game. Stressed assets essentially looks at assets which have blown up. They're not as valuable as before. So what they try to do is stressed assets recovery, right? Stressed assets recovery is like 20 cents on the dollar, 30 cents on the dollar, whatever you can milk out of a dead asset. So you try to sell it by piece. You try to, sell it as a whole. Whatever you try to do, stressed assets is one of the highest, like very rewarding careers in investment banking, right? Because there's a lot of money. So what the model is that you buy something at a very low price because it's a stressed asset. And you try to set it up and then you sell it. So that's the arbitrage what these people look at. Creditors, debtors can get into out of court arrangement, NCLT to only approve plans. So what they're saying is now you're allowed to go out of court. Aim is to reduce litigations pursued by promoters, expedite resolution. So as you know, resolution plans are extraordinarily difficult to play out, even when they are complete. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency especially remember what happened to Jindal Steel and Bhushan Power and Steel, right? Jindal Steel acquired Bhushan BPSL, and then 4 years later, Supreme Court woke up from their tender slumber, and they said, "Hey, this is illegal." So these kinds of things they are trying to avoid, and obviously the details would be hard to see, but that's the philosophical argument. That's always the philosophical argument. However, in this case, the actuality is for NCLT, the National. What is the full form of NCLT? NCLT, National Court of. One second. NCLT full form. National Company Tribunal Law. And a National Company Law Tribunal. It's basically corporate law handling body. So yeah, reduce their workload. So that's the idea. Moving on. Global SATCOM giants orbit India's 2 billion skies. So Indian SATCOM industry, Indian SATCOM play is at $2 billion right now, valued. It's gonna go like $20 billion in very shortly. It's gonna be a $23 billion play. I'll just tell you when it, it's supposed to grow tenfold in 3 years. So in 3 years, it's gonna be tenfold. So there's a lot of money in SATCOM, and a lot of tie-ups have begun. So SATCOM is essentially there's low Earth orbits and there's GEO, right? Low Earth orbit satellites, and then there's geostationary satellites, right? So a lot of industry is looking at tying up with these people as resellers. Some people are beginning their own satellite operations and so on and so forth. So what you're looking at is of course the major players are Starlink, Bharti Eutelstat, Airtel Eutelstat, Airtel OneWeb Eutelstat. It's a French company. We talked about this. It's a French government company, Eutelstat, which has Bharti as a very large shareholder. Then there's also UK government involved in that. So there's Starlink, which is Elon Musk, Mr. Musk. Then there's Bharti Eutelstat, which is Airtel. Then there's Geo OneWeb, which is a different play. Not Geo OneWeb, basically Geo, right? So yeah, Geo SES. So Bharti Eutelstat, Geo SES, Starlink, and then there's gonna be new players as well. And Bharti and Geo are also the distributors of Starlink. So they have their own companies, but they're also the sellers of Starlink. So a lot of interesting stuff is going to happen here. Luxembourg's Intelsat, UK's Inarmart, and other companies are doing satellite capacity. So all these companies are trying to push their satellite capacity. A lot of serious stuff is on right now. Moving on. Speaking of serious stuff, inflation has cooled down to 1.5%. Retail inflation. Retail inflation 1.5%, very low. It's pretty cool. Inflation is below 4%, of course, which is RBI's target. 2 to 6%, 4% is the target range, and inflation is way below. So that's good. Retail inflation plays a lot of role in the whole consumer price index, right? This is what defines how cheap or how expensive things are. But inflation, somehow I feel, let's say core inflation, which excludes energy prices and so on and so forth, inflation doesn't carry a lot of, doesn't count something which actually burdens the middle class the most. Can you guess what? Can you guess what that is? What inflation numbers don't capture as well, but it is actually like one of the biggest burdens on middle class families. That is essentially the loan thing, like home loans and so on and so forth, right? Because they tie up a lot of buying capacity of a person, right? And that is not really reflective. But yeah, food prices are low, everything is great as far as inflation is considered. But still, RBI won't cut the rates because of the tariff situation, because of a lot of problems, right? So you never know what happens. This was July. Let's see what August brings. Moving on, uh, cabinet, our Indian government has okayed 4.6 thousand crore chip projects. These are smaller, chip projects. Four more projects, 1,000 crore each. This is obviously smaller than Tata's investment, which is like a 1 lakh crore project. It's a 95,000 crore project. And then there's also another project in Assam, right? The 24,000 crore project. Those are big, big manufacturing facilities. These are going to be smaller, but still, they're going to lead to a lot of jobs, right? Some 300 direct jobs they claim to, uh, bring. 1.6 lakh crores across 6 states investments. Moving on, you remember I was telling you how Mr. Anil Ambani would try to settle with SEBI about the Rana Kapoor case. You remember that I was saying that this is getting screwed. This is getting very, let's say, what is the word for that? I don't want to use that word, but it's just getting stuck, right? And the way out was Mr. Anil Ambani to actually just settle with SEBI ASAP, right? So he offered a settlement. SEBI has rejected that settlement. That and Mr. Rana Kapoor settlement. So troubles are mounting up on Mr. Anil Ambani. There we were looking at how Anil Ambani's flagship company, Mr. Anil Ambani's flagship company, was raising 6,000 crores, and the company had started showing some promise financially. It was going, the debt was getting settled and everything was happening. And then comes the case, right? The whole Rana Kapoor case, and then also the other loan case, the SBI fraud bit. So trouble's not slowing down. That's that. Moving on. Speaker starts process to impeach Justice Verma. This is historic. Last night, not night, but yesterday we discussed how judiciary is the cornerstone, or the legal system is the cornerstone of any successful society and economy, right? So maybe Mr. Justice Verma is going to be the first justice to get impeached in India. And just imagine how it happened, right? He wasn't at home. Somehow he had cash at home. Somehow his house caught a fire. Somehow the fire brigade came to his house. Somehow they went into the room where the cash was existed. Somehow he wasn't there when the fire happened, so he couldn't park the money. Somehow fire brigade just saw the money and it called people. It didn't collect the money. Everything, it didn't call Justice Verma to get like the ransom or something. Somehow he got caught, and that was that. So in India, something nice to happen, you have to have a lot of somehows. That was my point, at least in the legal system. Moving on, US, is looking at mining interests in Balochistan. So this brings US and China close together. For the first time, US and China are gonna agree as far as Pakistan Balochistan conflict is considered. So India has been looking at the Balochistan situation, where Baloch, rebellion essentially is looking at separatist sentiments. Balochistan wants to be a free country, Now, that is obviously bad news for China because China has a lot of investments in Pakistan. But that's also now looking at as a bad news for America because they want to mine some rare earth minerals in Baluchistan. And for that, they are looking at Pakistan as an ally. So they believe that Pakistan could help them with this mining thing. So for the first time, China and US are gonna be saying the same thing, which is very, very strange. Very strange. Moving on. A lot of BS chit chat on politics, a lot of liquor scams, a lot of scams here and there. We discussed this, right? Such interesting liquor scam happened in where did this happen? Andhra Pradesh. You remember that Tilak Nagar Industries and everybody? So there was a state company which was selling all these people's liquor, and they were paying state company, but the way they were paying was that they were buying gold. And those gold were those expenses were essentially rooted in white, and then they were paid off in a very different way. So it was just a very, very interesting scam that was playing out in thousands of crore, and that included companies like Tilak Nagar, which is, by the way, raising 2000 crores to buy Imperial. So the deal is done, and now they're raising money, they're raising debt to take on this particular company, right? The Imperial Blue brand. New income tax bill has been passed by the government. Madam Nirmala Sitharaman is shocked that the opposition wasn't a part of the discussion. She said it's such an interesting and important decision, but these people are not a part of it, which is very, very weird. So something new on this, bill is that taxpayers are to provide access to virtual spaces, social media accounts during search operations. And CBDT will issue standard operating procedure and handle digital data to search this. So very material changes, but nobody really cares, right? Who cares? Who cares, right? People, what do they care about? They care about falling tax rates, right? Speaking of falling tax rates, direct tax mop-up has fallen 4% so far in FY26 amid big refunds, income tax refund deadline extension. This is basically what's called a nothing burger. So when you're reading the news, and when you're reading all seemingly important developments in business and finance, or in any case, there's a lot of noise. This was the noise, right? False direct tax mop-up falls 4% so far, right? Why? Because the deadline has been extended. So just when you complete the sentence, you figure out, oh, this wasn't a news, man. Did you just waste my time? But since I read this in the morning, I had to waste your time as well, right? Anyway, retail inflation has slipped 8-year low as we discussed in July. No rate cut still. CPI is pretty damn good. So is WPI. WPI is wholesale price index. Good news for the inflation numbers. Inflation numbers, good news is good news for us because, mehengai, inflation is mehengai. This particular last 10 years have been very, very tight. Essentially, when COVID came along, it sort of gave Indian economy a new start. Otherwise, it wasn't doing that well before COVID. Moving on. Mr. Perspective, alternate career choice for Nishant. Evil laugh dubbing. I used to read a lot of comic books. That's where I learned it from. Moving on. A center targets December for digitization of land right records. Northeast states and Ladakh exempted for now. Center states in talks to remove hurdles. So that's that. Real estate has been looking at a lot of modernization. That's been a very, very long-standing dream. And one of those dreams has been digitization of land records, which has been a very, very big deal, right? But none of that has happened as yet. Part of the agenda is computerization of all revenue codes, their integration with land records, with Aadhaar linking of records. It was launched in 2016. The plan. However, it's not really, taken off as well. So far, 372 million or 99.8% have been digitized. Similarly, 97.3% of cadastral maps have been digitized, and 89.7% of revenue codes have been computerized. However, these are not linked yet. So that's what there. So data has been created, but it's still in silos. So that's you know that's a problem. Records are not available for most parts of northeastern states and most critical measures. So CII, if you remember, CII was just talking about how land reforms are must. We need a GST kind of a system for land reforms. So December is the target for a lot of these things. A lot of digitization has happened, but the data is still yet to be linked, and a lot of that system is gonna be up for now. Cabinet okays 8,000 crore for Arunachal hydro unit. So Arunachal Pradesh has been a thorn on in the India-China relationship. China considers Arunachal Pradesh as South Tibet, which is obviously not good for India. Arunachal Pradesh has been a part of the Indian territory, so that's been a very very big concern for India. Since past 10 years, India has been ramping up the operational infrastructure projects in Arunachal Pradesh, because that's very very critical. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how we discussed that earlier. Time to reach the border line, essentially time to reach the critical areas for India was like 3 days, when China claimed to do it in 4 hours, and India has been trying to bring that time down by creating highways and so on, highways, airports, and so on and so forth. Overall infrastructure development has been very difficult in Northeast because the terrain is such, but a lot of stuff is happening. One of them is the 8,000 crore Arunachal hydro unit. Moving on. This is very interesting, by the way, and this I should say I did not see coming. So I don't know about you, but I did not see coming, and it has actually blown my mind in a lot of ways. So here's the update. When people slim down, businesses bulk up. Weight loss drugs popularity could boost growth for sectors such as textile, apparel, fitness, food, and wellness services. This is obvious, but it's obvious in hindsight, right? I didn't see this coming. Even as an intellectual exercise, I didn't see this happening. Let's say if people start taking these weight loss drugs, these semaglutides, GLPs, and so on and so forth, the Wegovy, Novo Nordisk, they're gonna get slimmed, and when they go and get slimmed, they're gonna buy a lot of clothes. Wow, that's interesting. That's pretty interesting for a second order effect, right? For the cascading effect of something, that they're gonna buy more clothes. And then it gets easier, it gets even better. So when people slim down suddenly, they're gonna have a lot of skin issues. When people slim down suddenly, they're gonna have some sort of hair loss issues. And a lot of doctors are waiting on, just like they're just latching onto the opportunity that these 1 lakh people who are essentially taking these weight loss drugs, they're gonna come to me, because there's gonna be some sort of a dental thing as well, because you lose a lot of muscle mass when you take these drugs, as of course, because you're losing fat. All of a sudden you lose certain muscles as well, and when you lose that, you actually have to work out a lot more. You have to do some sort of strength training. You've got to eat your food right. You can buy clothes, and you've got to go to the skin, because once you suddenly reduce your weight and the skin starts sagging, right? Skin sagging is a pretty big issue. So a lot of doctors are looking at this. Food and beverages, clothing, apparels, and so on, gyms and fitness centers might gain as a result of these weight loss drugs gaining traction. So right now, 1 lakh people have taken, estimated to be using these drugs. The figure is expected to surge to 1.2 million, that is 12 lakh within 2 years. So in 2 years, it's gonna grow tenfold. So we know two industries which are gonna grow tenfold in just 2 to 3 years. One is Satcom, and the other is this weight loss drug thing. Very scared of all this. So be extremely scared, right? Very very scared. Uh, Moving on. INB, Information and Broadcast Ministry, forms task force to combat rising piracy threat. Now, this is what I call a total bullshit news. Piracy has only decreased with time. So, piracy was rampant like 10 years ago. Piracy is not that rampant anymore because of the streaming platforms and because whatever has happened. Piracy has become very hard, and nobody really, I mean, people still pirate things, movies, but as far as movies are considered, people don't really go for piracy. You know what happened with Netflix and the advent of easy streaming is that people stopped making efforts towards going for things, right? So when we were young, we used to watch movies. Now I sound like an uncle, right? When we were young, जब मेरे जवानी के दिन थे. But essentially 10 years ago, right? We used to be investing a lot of effort in finding movies which were not otherwise available in India, right? There was no way you could find Rashomon, a 1950 Japanese movie, so you had to go to torrent and download it, right? But what happened is with Netflix, all that effort has basically disappeared. People are not making those efforts anymore. So there's a genuine decline in the kind of movies that people are actually looking forward to, right? Even the new ones. So they're just, watching whatever is easily available. The path of least resistance has taken its course. But since, the movie industry has been in such doldrums, it's actually saying that we've lost like 22,000 crores. Piracy economy valued at 22,000 crores in 2023. And we lose a lot of money. A revenue loss of 2.5 billion to the entertainment industry. Now this is just fugazi. It's just a dying industry trying to milk out something, and the ministry saying that they're serious about things. If they couldn't solve for piracy in 2016, they wouldn't solve for piracy in 2026. That's just life. Moving on. Casio, the Japanese company, has essentially started selling made in India watches. Now, Casio is an iconic watch company. We all remember the Casio watches being the forefront of technology. Made in India watches coming soon. That's very nice. Moving on. Radico Khaitan, SRK, that is Shah Rukh Khan, and his son Nikhil Kamath have invested in an alco beverage firm, which is supposed to export alcohol to different countries, right? It's an international alcohol beverage firm. But isn't alcohol haram in Islam? And SRK is selling it? Bad. Moving on. Norwest is eyeing a bite of Belgian waffles. Belgian waffle is a waffle store company, and they're essentially in a food service business, and they're getting sold. The company is getting valued at 350 to 500 crores. That is when its FY24 revenue was 225 crore, up from 148 crores. So in FY23 they did 150 crores. In FY24 they did 225 crores. That is how much for a growth rate? Like 40%? Yeah, 40%. So they grew 40%, this company, but they're getting a multiple of 2. Oh my god. They're getting a multiple of 2, guys. How? That is bad. That is sad. Just imagine, they operate 650 stores in 200 plus cities. They're growing 40%. Their revenue is 225 crores. They're profitable. Let me look at that. I read that. Yeah. Reported revenue. Belgian waffles. They've not mentioned the profit. Is it like a very loss-making company? Let me check. Belgian waffle loss. FY24. There's no readily available information about losses. But the company is growing. Might just be making losses, right? Just wait me 1 second. No. Adjusted EBITDA of 60 crore. Adjusted EBITDA. Adjusted EBITDA is another word for, a very obese guy showing adjusted six packs. But let's say even if they are like net level zero, 2 revenue multiple of 2 is essentially a fire sale, right? Theobroma transaction is complete. 85% has been acquired by Chris Capital at a valuation of 2,400 crores. Now this is lower than the expected value of 3,000 crores that we were looking at, but 2,400 crores it is. The sisters, the legendary sisters who started Theobroma a couple of decades ago, they're gonna stay with 10% of the share. Not bad. Not bad. Moving on. Tata Power is betting on renewable energy to drive future growth. A lot of income coming from distribution and so on, and some renewable energy investments are going to be up, as is the trend. Moving on. PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, is looking at hiring 20,000 more in the next 5 years. The beauty of these announcements, like we're going to hire 20,000 people in the next 5 years, is that they don't mean anything. They're just non-binding words. But, if it's announced, it has some weight. Apollo Health Tech targets listing by January to March 2027. So we discussed, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how Apollo demerged its business. So Apollo Hospitals got demerged with this telemedicine, pharmacy, health tech kind of a venture, and that venture is called Apollo Health Tech, and it's also a part of the family, by the way. But demerging, and we discussed why would a company demerge, right? We've talked about why would a company like Apollo Health Tech demerge from Apollo Hospitals to unlock financial value, because hospitals have a limited revenue multiple. It's a static kind of a business, doesn't have that growth potential, due to which the overall company's multiple goes down. So you've got to jack it up. So the way to jack it up is just demerge the very good part of the business, raise money for that independently, which is exactly what has happened. So no surprise, especially for Thinkers Frequency viewers, right? Apollo Hospitals net profit was 433 crores. Pretty good deal. Moving on. Suzlon Energy's reports came out, 7% up. Wind is going up. I just don't like when wind energy goes up. Wind energy is a terrible, terrible business. And who told me that? Who did I learn it from? That wind energy is a terrible business. Why do you think, by the way, wind energy is a terrible business? Do you agree with that, by the way? That wind energy is basically a terrible investment, terrible way of generating energy. It is actually, because it kills all the birds, firstly, and then it doesn't even, it's not even reliable, and it comes from China, and it comes from, basically the entire wind energy thing is dependent on China, and it kills the real estate. It generates perpetual noise, it kills real estate, and the maintenance of the wind essentially farm, it's not a very net positive reaction, right? Operation. So basically, real estate prices of anything, like the whole land around the wind energy farm, it just goes to the toilet. So overall, wind energy just sort of makes me feel, gives me the ick. Anyway, moving on. Mumbai police is launching probe into IndusInd accounting lapses. Well, they should investigate Hinduja's all companies, right? Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember Hinduja family trafficking Indians to get cheaper maids in Switzerland, not even paying them minimum wage, keeping them in the bunker, keeping their passports. They just invest Ashok Leland, investigate Ashok Leland, investigate everything that these people have been a part of. It can't be clean. Jindal Steel and Power net profit earnings came out, 12% up. Not bad. Moving on. India and China to resume direct flight in sign of closer ties. Governments move to restore air links amid thaw in relations ahead of SCO summit. So PM Modi is going to be meeting Xi Jinping in the SCO summit, which is supposed to happen September. Yeah, it was supposed to happen in September. So a lot. India is really opening up to China, man. 24% investment limit without any regulatory scrutiny in electronics market. Then giving opening up to Chinese investments like that. Then there was another thing that India did for China recently after Mr. Jaishankar went. What was that? What was that? They opened themselves to China in one more aspect. One was this investment opportunity where they said you can invest in Indian companies 24% without any regulatory scrutiny. Then there was another thing which I'm forgetting. But yeah, India has been really opening up. Tourism, yeah. No, not EV, not EV. EV, if Chinese EVs get opened up to Indian automotive market, Indian automotive market will essentially just disappear. You know, if China is essentially brought into the fray, so they can't do that. But we discussed this. They did something. Maybe it was tourism. Maybe Mr. Tarun is right, Mr. Jindal. It was tourism where they allowed Chinese tourists. Yeah, it was tourism essentially. You're right, Mr. Tarun. So we've been opening up. 5 years. It's time to take off, says the report. So that's going on with India, China. China hasn't given India anything, by the way, until now. I mean, we've made a lot of moves, but there's not been one good news from China. So let's pray that that happens soon. Hindalco's results are up 30% Q1 net. Ethanol costlier than petrol. So a lot of people were saying that since we are paying for this blended ethanol and E20 is happening and we are spending so much of money and we are hurting cars because it's basically not very good for our cars, why don't you reduce the fuel cost? And people will the government is like, hey, blended ethanol doesn't cost less to us. That's why we can't reduce the cost. So that's what's going on with ethanol market, right? Blended ethanol costlier than petrol. Ministry rejects call to cut fuel price. So they say that a liter of petrol currently costs 94 rupees, 94.77 in Delhi, which includes a base price of 52 rupees plus taxes and dealer commission, according to oil company data. Ethanol's energy is about 33% lower than pure petrol. That's okay. Vehicle fuel economy may go down by 3%, says the data, right? EIA, which is not true. It goes down by way a lot more, but okay. And ethanol 10, US uses ethanol 10, and they have like a 6% decrease of fuel efficiency, 3%. So what they are expecting is that India, like ethanol 20, should give us 6%. So that's not how it works. It's not a linear operation. So ethanol 20 will have much more fuel consumption than ethanol 10. It's not gonna be linear, is what I think prima facie, but I could be wrong. So yeah, that's that. Government says we don't have any room to cut ethanol blended petrol's price because it's already more costly than what we essentially buy right now. Kadi Ninda is what we got, says Mr. Tarun. You're right. In reference to China, right? Yeah, you're right. You're right. Moving on. Wall Street near record highs on rate cut hopes. Oh, US inflation data came out, by the way. And it's good. It's good. So US inflation is at 2.4%. We'll get to the number. So Wall Street is basically kicking up because it thinks that Fed is finally gonna reduce rates. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember Mr. Trump called Mr. Powell, the Fed chief, quote, a moron, right? So because he wasn't reducing rates, because Trump really wants US interest rates to come down, but that hadn't happened as of now. So he was calling him all sorts of things, right? Stupid, moron, and so on and so forth. But right now it seems that it just might happen anytime now. Mr. Tiwari says then 100% ethanol would be just 30% drop. So yeah, that's the play, right? It doesn't happen like that. You got to change the engines. Change the engines. Uh, Moving on. Indian bond traders may have abandoned rate cut hopes. Well, they could have just asked me, right? Yeah, you're good to abandon that hope. Moving on. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We cover everything, man. That's why we like this is so. SEBI is simplifying norms to further attract foreign investments. So, as you know, foreign investors have been fleeing the Indian equities, right? FPIs have been running away. A lot of exits happening, which is good for them. It's good for Indian market too in the long run, because if FPIs get the signal that hey, India is a market where we can invest and we can take our money out whenever we like. So right, it's a flexible market, very well a rewarding market, and also a pretty easy market to operate. That's good for us in the long term, but not in the short term, because if there's a lot of exit happening, it's a problem, right? So viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember what India did to what India is trying to get FPI numbers up, right? It's trying to ask the Indian businesses, Indian retail investors and companies to set themselves up in gift so that they can make investments in Indian equities as FPIs, which is awesome. And now it's trying to simplify further norms to attract, low risk investors. So single window nod for low risk investors, simpler disclosure nods, optimizing rules on cards. These are all very macro thing. This doesn't mean anything, whatever I said, so you can just philosophically understand. All these things are good to know once you know the number. Like, what's the percentage of, let's say, time that the person will save, or what's the compliance burden that will come down. But philosophically, they say we'll have a single window nod for low risk investors. So investors' compliances and regulatory overhang will reduce. So that's what they're trying. Moving on. Hope you're not missing out anything. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Bum 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Uh-huh. Okay, so something very solid has happened. Uh, Motilal Oswal Financial Services has invested like 400 crores in Zepto. 400 crores in Zepto. Uh, it's a part of the 1,000 crores Zepto is trying to raise. Zepto has been having some trouble raising money lately, and it's not been easy for the company. Of course, for it shouldn't have been easy to raise this much money, but they've been able to. Uh, That's the beautiful part. Now there's another story, which is Nika's Q1 profit up to 24 crores, revenue rises 23%. So at a 2000 crore revenue stage, Nika is generating like 24 crores in net profit, which is basically what, 1%. Not a great company, not a green company, but doing well financially. But both of these companies have been able to raise a lot of money. Do you know how? Uh, uh, Nika's founder, the lady Falguni, Madam Falguni Nair, her husband is a very big banker. He's just huge. Mr. Nair, Sanjay Nair, is it? Anyway, and Zepto's father, sorry, not Zepto's father, Zepto's founder's father, Aditya Palicha, that guy, his father is a very big banker in the Middle East. He's a very big banker, you know. So, and both of these companies have been able to raise money despite everything, right? And they've been, it's just extraordinarily, it's phenomenal how they've been able to raise money. So, what is the insight here? What's the insight here? The insight here is have your father in banking or marry a banker or be a banker yourself. That's the insight. How is that? You thought I'm going to give you a life-changing insight, right? That's how I built it up. But then, Sometimes it's just nice to fiddle with the feelings, right? Have your father in banking, marry a banker, or be a banker yourself. That's the insight. So, Honasa's Mama Earth's revenues also climbed 7%, barely anything. It was supposed to be a high growth company, but not really. Not really. Moving on. Paytm has gotten nod for an ePay aggregator tag. Finally. 2.7%. Yeah, US inflation numbers were 2.7%. So, something very interesting has happened. Perplexity has given a bid to acquire Google Chrome because Google Chrome is getting some sort of antitrust thing, with the US courts because of it's Chrome, it's the way to the internet, Google search. A lot of antitrust trust thing is happening. So multiple companies are trying to acquire Google Chrome. They've submitted bids, unsolicited bids. These are basically PR exercises. But $34.5 billion bid has been given by Perplexity. Now, a lot of people are like, how? This is amazing. This isn't so. It's basically a PR bid, right? However, financially, it makes sense to understand how would this come to be if it was the case, right? If it was the case, how would it come to be? By the way, this isn't the first time Perplexity has tried acquiring something. It also wanted to merge with TikTok, so it's been doing whatever it's been doing. But how do you, acquire a company which is larger than you? So Perplexity is right now valued at 20 billion, 18 to 20 billion dollars, right? And it's trying to acquire Google Chrome, which is a $35 billion company, as per its admission, right? It's submitting a bid for $35 billion. So how do you do that? OpenAI, by the way, also in the fray, they wanted to acquire Google Chrome. All the antitrust thing, they said sell Google Chrome because this is anti-competitive and so on and so forth. The point is, it's called leverage buyout, LBO. What you do in leverage buyout is essentially take a debt basis the acquiree company's balance sheet. So you take a term B loan, you take another loan, then you raise equity. So 35% of it is equity. So you've got to raise, like, if you're having a $35 billion bid, you got to raise 10 billion in equity. Then the 70% of it, which is like essentially 25 billion, you got to raise debt. Some of that is going to be a term loan debt, term B loan, and then some of them is going to be mezzanine capital and so on and so forth. So what you do is that you take that debt at whatever interest and you fulfill that debt from the cash flows of the acquiring company. That is the essence of LBO. That's how this LBO thing works. And it's very interesting. I read this in Havel's biography. So Mr. Anil Rai Gupta, he wrote how Havel's acquired a European company when LBOs were beginning to rise in India. So it was a very good description of how LBOs happen. So this is, they're trying to do an LBO here. Very common, but very interesting. So NVIDIA. China says don't buy these H20 chips because of national security reasons. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how Trump and US government essentially gave NVIDIA and AMD the option of selling their H20 chips, which are not the best chips, as a viewer pointed out, of course, but not bad, right? They were trying to block it, but they said you can sell, you got to give a 15% share of revenue, right? And China says don't buy these because China is also because of national risk and whatever. And China is saying that we are growing as ourselves as far as developing chips is considered. So the truth is China just goes to Singapore and trains their models on that particular chip, right? So one of those things that they do. Moving on, we talked about viewers of Thinkers Frequency. You remember what was happening with Intel, right? We talked about that. Intel was trying to do a Hail Mary thing with its Panther Lake production of H18, A18. Was it H18? A18. They were trying to really make this chip. The whole manufacturing, was set up, and it was the yields they were trying to increase. So it was a Hail Mary situation. Hail Mary was the analogy of a US American football game where they throw, to the touchdown situation that the person catches. It's a very high risk, high reward situation. And if it doesn't happen, Intel was gonna get screwed. They were in that situation. Then something happened where Mr. Trump wrote that Intel CEO hasn't, is conflicted. He has like $200 million invested in Chinese company. Intel needs to fire this guy. And then that guy says, hey, I'm clean, sir, I'm clean. Now, Trump has met Intel CEO and he says he has an amazing story. So that guy came out and he talked to Trump and he says, and I quote, I met with Mr. Lip Bu Tan of Intel along with Secretary of Commerce. He has an amazing story. Yeah, that's what he wrote. So yeah, just one second. The meeting was very interesting. His success and rise is an amazing story. Mr. Tan are going to spend time together and bring suggestions. Why did this happen? Because Intel cannot die. Intel is a very big and important company for US, and no matter what's happening with Nvidia, no matter whatever is happening with all the chip companies which are growing, AMD and so on, you can't let Intel die like that, right? Especially not for nothing. So that's what's happening. And yeah, I think we've covered it up. Evergrande is delisting from Hong Kong exchange. Evergrande is the Chinese real estate company which had a debt of $300 billion which it couldn't pay. A lot of people thought that the fall of Evergrande is going to take China down with it. A lot of people were really hoping and praying that with Evergrande's fall, Chinese real estate market would fall, and with Chinese real estate market falling, Chinese entire economy would fall, and it's going to have cascading effects of that kind. I said that it's not going to happen because Chinese debt, only 12% is foreign debt, rest is all domestic. And no matter how bad Chinese real estate situation is, it's not going to have an impact to a country which is making $1 trillion per year on exports, as profits. So I said it's not going to happen. Evergrande is delisting, no problemo, So that's that. By the way, Mr. Musk and Mr. Sam Altman are having quite a fight. So Apple is tying up with ChatGPT, and Apple is basically looking like a company acquired by ChatGPT. It's promoting ChatGPT everywhere in all sorts of ways in all its devices, and it's not listing X AI as an app for AI. So this is an antitrust violation. Mr. Musk says, and he says we're going to go to court, and it's basically illegal for Apple to be promoting ChatGPT in a way and hindering competition. So it's classic antitrust case, to which Sam Altman says that this is wrong. Elon Musk has promoted XAI on the back of Twitter, and he's promoted himself on Twitter, right? He forced people to read his tweets essentially by hacking the algorithm. To which Mr. Musk said, scum Altman lies as easily as he breathes. So that's what's going on between those two. But you got to, I'm on team Musk with this, because just imagine somebody taking money for a non-profit and then making it a for-profit and not even giving the original donors a share. That is indeed sketchy, man. That is sketchy. Speaking of sketchy, a research has just come out. I read this every day, that psychedelics give people a better understanding of meaning of life, and it's also good. Works very well for therapy. As a therapy, what is it called? Aid. So did anybody need to do a research for that? No. They could have just asked me, because psychedelics, especially when it comes to something like LSD or shrooms and so on and so forth, they've been proven as very helpful in these circumstances, right? But every day a research comes out which sort of confirms the same. I've not read a single research which says that psychedelics have had some sort of negative effect as far as those tests are considered. No, none of them. But LSD is illegal. Even the research on LSD is also illegal. It's not just consumption of LSD, which is illegal. Even the research of LSD is illegal, which is a travesty. So, a great book I read on this was LSD, My Problem Child, the autobiography of Dr. Albert Hoffman, the inventor of LSD. Would highly recommend that book if you have the time. And with that, we've come to the end of the 80th episode of Thinker's Frequency. How did it feel, guys? 80 episodes, Mr. Tarun, Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Jindal. 80 episodes is it's just incredible, right? It's goddamn. It's pretty awesome. 80 episodes. Wow. Touch wood. I had a lovely time talking. I hope you found it very valuable. I hope you found it fun. I hope it was great. Do make sure to like, guys. Says Mr. Tarun. Mr. Tarun is like a true patron. Come on, guys. Like it. Yeah. I wish I was that auntie, who changed my life with just one live stream which I watched for 5 minutes. Like kare, and then money comes. Thank you, Mr. Tarun. Like kare, and thank you, Mr. Jindal. And suddenly money was pouring. It's amazing. None of that has happened with us as of now. But, you never know. So, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. It's 9:03. We're going to punch in anytime soon. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Thank you so much. By the way, did you notice I improved the pacing of my speech throughout the session just to make it a bit quicker and more efficient? So we got to cover a lot of things, and we've covered a lot of things quicker just because I'm talking fast. Right? Take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.